Copyright Stanford University, all rights reserved.
Okay, as we wait for more people to come in, start this evening's session. Good evening, everyone. My name is Hee-Jung Ra, a co-president at Ames, and on behalf of our Ames team, welcome to our July seminar. Is this anybody's first time at our seminar? Oh, welcome. So we are a group that works towards providing mentorship and exposure to entrepreneurship and industry-related career paths. And so you could find all of our events at ames.stanford.edu. We have a LinkedIn group that you can join as well, and you can follow us on our Twitter at Ames Stanford. Also, we just launched 2 new Ames mailing lists where you can get updates on what we're up to. One is a membership list that is for Stanford postdocs and research associates. So it's a community mailing list where you can communicate with each other. And there is an Ames announcement list that anybody can sign up for where you'll get push notifications for all of our open events. So for this, you can check our website, again, at ames.stanford.edu to sign up for that. And with that, I'll go ahead and introduce our speaker for today. Betty Kayton has over 25 years of experience in the technology industry as a key member of executive teams at high-growth venture-backed startups. Her contribution ranges from strategic planning, fundraising, to tactical challenges such as building appropriate infrastructure without stifling growth. She has been involved as the CFO of Dropbox, Leapfrog Toys, Nominum, Vuclip, MGA Entertainment, and also as a senior financial management positions at Fortune 500 companies, including Fujitsu and Citicorp. She was certified as a CPA while working for Ernst Young and holds an MBA from the University of Southern California and a BA from Pomona College. So tonight, Betty will share her insights based on her experience with helping early stage startups on how to survive and thrive. And on that note, please join me in welcoming Betty Kayton.
Hi guys, let's keep this really interactive because it's kind of boring standing up here just talking. So if you have a question or a comment or why are we doing this or how about this, just butt on in, raise your hands, jump in, and don't be shy about it. I love startups. Startups is to me what life's all about. I should have included on the bio because we're in the School of Medicine, a genetics company, and that is a company called Natera, which is prenatal genetic testing. And so I've been involved with a couple of medical companies, including a competitor of Fitbit named Lark, which does a sleeping monitor. So you wear a little band and it helps you. Oh, you're nodding. Are you a Lark user? Wonderful. Okay, so there is some stuff out there in terms of medical, but I'm basically a software hardware gal, which is kind of weird. Most people that know hardware don't know anything about software and vice versa. Dropbox is the one I'm the most famous for because everybody here uses Dropbox. Hopefully you're all paying users. Yes, I love to see that. And then when you get a little bit older, you'll have kids and then you'll do Leapfrog Toys, which is also kind of fun. So a lot of people say, what's a startup and what's involved and how do I go do it? And I've worked at these great big companies my whole life, but I don't actually know anything about a startup. So what I put in my little bag of tricks, if I can find where I put it, this is kind of like the magic bag you can never find anything in. So give me 1 second. I should have gotten this ready ahead of time. Here we go. This is what a stock certificate looks like, in case nobody's ever seen one. Because I want to work for stock. I'm going to work for stock options. That's what a stock certificate looks like. It's a lousy piece of paper. And it says, I, Betty, own 10 shares of, I don't know, let's pick on somebody. What's the name of your company you're going to start after you finish with this class? Nothing? What are you holding? Muscle Milk. We're going to have the Muscle Milk Company here. And what we're going to do is promote muscle milk throughout the world. So I now own 10 shares of the Muscle Milk Company. So it's got my name, and on the back it's got all kinds of little conditions. It says basically you can't sell this stock. It's not public yet until you go to an IPO. This thing is just a beautiful piece of paper you can frame in the bathroom and show all your friends, and that's about it, and you hope someday it's worth something. So if anybody wants to see what a stock certificate looks like, we can pass it around. It's not a big deal. Okay, so that's common stock. Common stock's what normal people get. That's because it's called common. It's ordinary. If you're going to go get money from investors, they're going to want preferred stock. Yeah, I know, you have that normal stock for the rank and file. I'm the investor. I want special stock. Mine's going to be preferred. Well, what's preferred about it? Am I cutting in and out here? Okay, what's preferred about preferred stock is they come first when the money comes out. So let's say you sell the company for $100 million. Doesn't that sound great? I'm preferred. I get the first 53 million of that. So the first 53 million go to them. You get nothing. Zero. They get the first 53 million. The next 47 gets divvied up among everybody else. Gee, you're selling for 100 million. That's great. What happens if you sell for 5 million? They get the first 6.5. The other 500,000 gets divided among everyone else. So when you're raising money, one of the things you want to ask yourself is, what are the conditions of the preferred? How preferred is it, and how much do they get? Kind of a rule of thumb, and it always changes, is they get their money back. So if they put in 5 million, they get the first 5 million back. If they've invested 10 million, they get the first 10. And if you manage to fund the thing with only $250,000 because you're doing an app that doesn't need all this genetic stuff like hers does, all you need is an iPhone app, you can do that for $250,000. You give them the first $250,000, and then you guys get to share in everything else. So part of the thing is there's preferred stock, which the investors get, common, which everybody else gets. Then you hear this thing called founder shares. Hey, I'm a founder. We're going to go start this company together. We're going to go into the arrowhead business. We're going to own 50-50, right? So I'm going to quit my day job, and I'm going to work really hard all day long. You're going to stay working at your day job, and you're only going to work in the evening. Should we own it 50-50? Probably not. I'm putting in a lot more effort. Yeah, but I'm really stupid, and she's smart. So she, in 2 hours, is putting more effort into the company because she's really brilliant. She's got this great technology idea. So maybe my 8 hours is worth her 2 hours. Do you split it 50-50? So when you come to do the founders, you've got to figure out who divvies up the pie and who gets how much stuff. Now, I'm an investor now. I'm not an employee. You're the employee. You're working hard. I'm just writing you a check. Well, I should pay for my stock. I should write a check for my stock, but you're sweating. You're not drawing a salary. We're not paying you $200,000 a year. You're doing this weekends and evenings. She's working like hell. Maybe we give her founder shares. You don't have to write a check. You just get it for sweat. Because you sweat, you get the shares. You get 20% of the company just because you work hard. So generally, founder shares are generally not paid for except for sweat. That's, again, there's an exception to every rule. I'm kind of trying to do the generalities. So what's a stock option? Anybody want to take a shot at what a stock option is? Come on, you read about it all the time. We're all in Silicon Valley. We all want stock options. Most people don't know what it is. So I'll share you the misery. Let's say that Google is worth $600 today. If I have an option that says I can buy Google at $500, and Google's worth $600 today, that's pretty good, right? I can buy something for $500 and I can sell it an hour later for $600. That's called an in-the-money option. It means you can buy it cheaper than it's worth. That's cool, right? Everybody wants to get an option for Google for $500 if it's worth $600. Anybody here old enough to remember pets.com? That was, remember the sock puppet, and they spent all the money in the Super Bowl and they were going to sell pet food? Well, that company is now worth $0. They're bankrupt. Well, I've got an option. I can buy pets.com for $100 a share. Why would I write a check to buy a $100 a share stock that's worth $0? That piece of paper that's running around, that's worth more than a stock certificate for pets.com. Unless you want to sell it on eBay for the collector value, a stock of pets.com is worthless. So if I have an option to buy pets.com at $100, it's not in the money, it's underwater. Just like you hear all these houses that are underwater, you can have an underwater stock option. So stock options are great if they're in the money. Stock options are bad if they're not in the money. So let's come back to Google. Let's say somebody today said, Google's worth $600, and I'm going to give you an option. Well, we haven't picked on you. What's your name? Sally. We're going to give Sally an option to buy Google at $700. Sally's going to say, but it's only worth $600 today. Well, but it might go up. So an option to buy Google at $700 has value. the value depends on how much Sally thinks Google's going to get up to $700. Now, it might go down to 500, might go up to 1,000. When Google went public, it was $89. So if you had an option at $89 for Google today, you'd be in pretty good shape. So the answer is with a stock option, you never know if it's worth money or not. You just got to hope, because stock prices are volatile. They go up and down. And if you time it right and you buy on the up, you're good. It's just like houses. They go up and down, right? You want to buy the house when it's going up. You want to buy at the bottom, not buy at the top. Okay, so preferred stock, debt. If you raise money for, we're going to start, what's your name? Glenn. Glenn and I are going to go start a company, and we're going to go in, we're going to build computer mice. We're going to build, oh wait, you guys were doing something else. Medical, you were doing the toilet seat lifting. We're going to go in the toilet seat lifting business. We're going to need $25 million to get this all developed and to get it into the market and get the doctors to understand it and get the government. We're going to need 25 million bucks. No investor is going to write me a check right now for $25 million. We're going to have to do it piecemeal. So maybe we get our friends and family to put in the first $500,000, and maybe we go get some debt, we borrow some money. And maybe we get the government to give us some of that money. There's an SBIR. Anybody know what an SBIR is? Small Business Investment Loan. They don't take any equity. They just write you a check. Now, as a taxpayer, hang on one second. As a taxpayer, I'm absolutely outraged that my tax dollars are going to be given away to people, and the government, meaning me, the taxpayer, doesn't get any ownership in the company. None. God, they're wasting my tax dollars giving you, for your toilet seats, 10 million bucks, and I don't get any ownership. Well, if you go to the venture capitalists, they're going to want 20% of your company. Well, why shouldn't the taxpayer own some of it? So I'm outraged. But given the money's there, I'd rather go to you guys than to go to some jerk on the street that's going to go do pets.com sock puppets. At least you guys will do something useful with the money. So go check out the websites for the SBIRs and find if there's one that applies to your business. It's free to apply, and the money doesn't have to be paid back. So this says equity and debt. There's a third one, which is government grants, which is better because it's free and you don't have to give it back. But it's our tax dollars hard at work. Okay, we talked a little bit about this. How do you decide how we get it? Remember, we were going to start a company and who gets the money. If you started off wrong, it's really hard to fix. Gee, I'm going to give you half the company because you're not going to quit your day job and you're going to do this in the evenings and work really hard. She owns half the company. Guess what? She starts goofing off. Doesn't come in on Saturdays, doesn't come into any of the meetings, doesn't deliver anything she's supposed to deliver, but we've already given her half the stock. What are we going to do? So typically when you give stock, it vests over time. And what that means is we're going to fire you because, man, I'm picking on her because I don't want to pick on you guys. At least we know each other. You're so horrible, we're going to fire you tomorrow. But you've only been here 4 months. Your stock was going to vest over 4 years. So every month a piece of your stock vests, but you're gone after 4 months. So 4 divided by 48, that's the amount of stock you get to keep. 44 divided by 48, we're buying it back. So we're going to give you a check for $1.35 because you only paid $2 for your stock in the first place, and we're going to buy back all your invested stock. So that's how you get rid of somebody that's a bad player. You can't change their stock, you gave it to them. But you can fire them if it's subject to vesting and get it back. Have I lost anybody on that, or are we all here? How do you determine the price on the stock? You have a Ouija board and you go, what's the price? There really isn't a way. When you're starting a brand new company at the very beginning, there is no price. So you generally pick $10 or you pick $50. You just pick a number. Now it's different if you have a real company with real ideas and real products and you're going to hire 20 people and you're going to go rent a building, you need a real value. But it's just the two of us and we're just going into business, $20, $50. I always keep it under 1,000. Just keep a very small number because when we fire her, we have to buy it back. So you want a low number because if she pays 1,000, we have to pay 1,000 back. Who's got $1,000? If she only pays $10, it's easy. 44 divided by 48 times $10. We can afford that. We'll write her a check for $9. Okay, we'll buy your stock back for $9. Yes. She doesn't have a choice. When we sold her the stock, it says, that little stock certificate on the back side, it's got 20 pages of agreement, and it says you only vest 1 divided by 48 every month. And she has to sign, I agree, I am buying the stock under these conditions. So one of the things we'll get in one of the other slides is it says, do the documents right, use the right legal form. She doesn't have a choice. We buy them back. Okay, Gee, we're going to do some work, and who haven't we picked on? We haven't picked on the lady here with the Sony Val. What's your name? What? Kelly? Carrie? Carrie. Okay, so Carrie and I are going to work together, and Carrie is the most brilliant programmer you've ever met. She can program anything. Carrie, I want you to write this program for me. I don't have any money. Tell you what, I'll give you 1,000 stock options to do my work. So Carrie has to say, do I believe in this? Do I want these? Maybe I'd rather pay her $1,000, because if my company is going to be worth $20 million someday, man, she just got $483,000 for doing some computer program, and I could have paid her $1,000. So you have to make the trade-off. It's really easy to give Carrie stock. I just give her a piece of paper. It's free. But down the road, if I'm a big success, I'm going to go, my God, Carrie got $500,000 for a week's worth of programming? Shoot, I should have just given her the $1,000. But maybe I don't have $1,000. I don't have a choice. You had a question. I didn't hear that one. Can you share it? Okay. Oh, okay. And so when they went public, he got $1 million for his. Okay. But if I have no money, well, art's different. But you know, if I have no money and I need the programming and Carrie can do it, you know, maybe she makes $1 million later. But I bet Carrie's doing this for 10 other companies, and 9 out of the 10 are going to go bankrupt. So Carrie's taking a chance too, because they don't all succeed. Yes.
So this slide, you had common stock and
Uh-huh. Right. There isn't an answer on that. All the employees and the Carries and the consultants and the guy that does the mural, they all get common. Preferred is what you give to your venture capitalists and your investors. So if you raise a lot of money, you give out a lot of preferred, and it's a high ratio. If you raise very little money, you give out very little. And as the company gets older, you issue more and more stock because you spend more and more money. So we'll get to that in a couple more slides. Okay. First of all, we don't play games with stock because people go to jail. What we do is we do what's called financial engineering. Financial engineering is the legal way to structure, it's called corporate governance. So you call it financial engineering and structuring corporate governance. And what it means is you legally design the stock in a way to reward the people you want to reward. There's also a tradition in the Valley how this stuff happens. And if I come up with this really good idea, but everybody else does it that way, I better do it that way if I want to raise money. It's hard enough explaining to them how my toilet seat works without trying to explain that I've invented this new way of structuring a company. So, of the companies that get founded in the Valley, 80% go bankrupt. So 80% never go anywhere, let alone go public. Of the 20% that succeed, less than 1% go public. The other 99% get acquired. So everybody's buying everybody these days. You know, who's Google? They're going out and they're buying a company a week. Cisco used to buy a company every 3 days. Microsoft is buying, Yahoo's buying. Because what's happening is you've got, I'm sorry, I forgot your name? Harshal. Harshal's invented this wonderful application that's helping use mobile phones for medical. Well, maybe AstraZeneca wants to go buy that. Maybe Microsoft wants to buy that. What they can do is sit back and wait and let 80% of the companies fail, and then they find the 1 or 2 Harshals that have done a good job and they buy their company. So most companies are going to exit through M&A, mergers and acquisitions, not through an IPO. But my stock is worth 0 until my company exits somehow. It's called a liquidity event. It becomes liquid. It's worth, by the way, the slides will all be available, so you feel free to take notes, but we'll be handing them out. They're not like secret or anything. So your stock isn't worth anything until the company becomes liquid. Because I can't sell my stock. I can't even give it away. I own those, remember that stock that's running around? It says not transferable. You can't sell it. So for example, I'm the first CFO of Dropbox. I was there 3.5 years. I own shares in Dropbox. What can I do with them? Nothing. I can put them on the bathroom wall and I can frame them. That's all I can do. It's not public. Dropbox hasn't sold to anybody. And right now it's a darling and it's doing great. Tomorrow, hopefully it will do even greater, but it might go down. In the meantime, I have this beautiful little stock certificate that I can look at. That's all I can do. I can look at it. Yes, ma'am. It's not worth something until you IPO or sell. But the or sell is the important part because the ratio of sells to IPOs is like 10 to 1. So it's not worth anything until you exit with a liquidity event of some kind. Yes, sir? Uh-huh. Right. Oh. Okay, so the question is, I've now been working at Dropbox for 5 years. I'm fully vested. I own my stock. Dropbox now has 300 employees, but it hasn't gone public or hasn't sold. I still have a beautiful piece of paper that someday will be worth what the mural guy's stock is, but I can't do anything with it till the company exits or gets sold or goes public. And the venture capitalists put a lot of pressure on a company to exit within a reasonable time frame. I'm going to take 25 years to go build my Earth orbit where I'm going to clean all the space junk out of the orbit, so it's going to take 20 years to do that. Most venture capitalists don't have the patience to wait 20 years. They want to make their money sooner than that. Question? Can we save that for another slide? That's coming up. Okay, so we talked about cash. I'm glad you guys taught me about the mural guy. I hadn't heard the story. That one's great. Stock option budget, when you're figuring out, gee, I'm going to have to hire 10 people or 200 people or 20 people. How many people do I need? So you kind of plan ahead how the stock's going to do. And you plan ahead for the dilution, which is the question you asked, but we'll save that for another slide or two. I'm going to raise this much money, and I'm going to have 1 million shares of stock. Well, great. Then next year I have to raise another 5 million bucks. Why not have 100 million shares of stock? Now I need to raise some more money. I now have 200 million shares of stock. So the stock keeps getting bigger, and you have to plan ahead how much you think you're going to have to give out for the dilution. I'm kind of going to save that question for the back. I see somebody, a hand in the back. Yes? Okay. Right. Okay, this is an extremely smart question, and you'd be surprised how few people are smart enough to answer it. So I'm going to go work for, what's your name? John. John wants to go hire me, and he says, Betty, I want you to help me with my business plan. I'm going to give you 1,000 shares of stock. Boy, that sounds great, 1,000 shares of stock. But he's got 300 billion shares. Now, we're going to go pick Sally. Sally says, Betty, come help me on my business plan. I'm going to give you 1,000 shares of stock. Sally's company only has 5,000 shares. Guess what? I get 20% of Sally's company, and I get 0.001 times 10 to the minus 35th or whatever of your company. So it's always a good idea when you're trying to set up the number of shares of a company. You said, how much? And I said, 10 bucks. I love doing 10 million shares. Every company you set up tomorrow morning, you put 10 million shares in it. It's a nice round, because that way when you offer somebody work, it sounds good. I'm going to give you 5,000 shares. Ooh, 5,000. Most people never think to ask the question, how many, what's in the denominator? They just say numerator, 5,000 shares. So I kind of recommend that a brand new company, for most general companies, is 10 million shares. Now, if you're going to be toilet seat guys, you're going to need a lot more than that. But start off small. Start off with 10 million. And a year or two from now, you can add a zero to the end of it. But if you say at the beginning, I'm going to give you 53 shares to paint that mural for Facebook, who's going to want to work for 53 shares? So make it sound good with lots of big round numbers. Okay, so let's get back on track. Okay, so I view this as like a teeter-totter. A lot of businesses, let's pick a business, toilet seats. Pick on toilet seat guys. It's going to be very slow. It's going to take a long time. You need big plant. You got to get all the doctors convinced. It's going to take years. Do you guys need a plan? If you remember the tortoise and the hare from when you were a little kid about the tortoise and the hare winning the race, you guys are going to be the tortoise. You're going to go slow and steady and make progress every day. And it's not going to be like tomorrow morning you're an instant success, because it's going to take a while. If you're a company like Dropbox, you better move quick and move fast, because that's all you got. And you want to have virality, and you want to have all your friends sharing, and you want to take off. You're Angry Birds. You're going to introduce a new game. It better move fast. So you have to decide what kind of business you are. Are you a tortoise or a hare? And if you think you're a tortoise and you act like a hare, you're going to run out of money, because you're going to spend all the money real fast and you're going to be gone. On the other hand, if you think you're a tortoise and you're in a business that's a hare, you're going to get run over because you're going to be kind of going along like everybody's going to go whoop and run you over, and you're going to get beat to the market. So it's really important you figure out which kind of company you are. Are you a preserve capital, go slow, tortoise and hare? Okay? I'm trying to skip over some of these because we're doing a lot of questions. Okay, should we raise money? I'm going to give you a real true story. I judge a lot of business plan competitions because I have a lot of fun. I get to see all these cool ideas and learn about new products. And one of the business plan competitions, the prize was you got a 1-hour pitch with Sequoia Capital. So it was supposed to be a company that could raise $50 to $100 million and go out and change the world. Great, I'm reading these plans. There's 125 plans I'm reading through. And yeah, I'm rating them on a 1 to 10 scale. This one's a 3, that one's an 8. And I read one and I started getting excited. And I said, man, this one's great. I rated it a 0 on a 1 to 10 scale. It was so bad, I rated it a 0, but it was the best plan in the competition. How does that happen? And I wrote on it, please see me afterwards. Lady came up, she's got tears in her eyes. Oh my God, you gave me a 0. I've never gotten a 0 in my life. I said, here's a check for $5,000. She said, but you gave me a 0. And I said, all I want you to do is in 6 weeks, I want my $5 grand back. She said, 6 weeks? I said, you don't want to raise $4 million. You can do this on $5,000. It's a lifestyle business. What she had is an idea to make little tags for dogs. Everybody have a little silver thing, you know, my name's Fido, I live at 123 Elm Street. They cost $6, you buy them at Petco when they're ugly. Hers looks like a little California driver's license. It's darling. It looks just like a California driver's license. It's got the name of the dog and a picture and a paw print. And it's cute. And it's $6.95 plus $4 postage and handling. And so her friends on her street all get together. Their kids go to school. About 10 o'clock, they all go over to her house. They sit around their dining room table, and they make little dog tag things, and they put them in envelopes and mail them out. And at 2 o'clock, they all go home and pick up their kids from school. They're netting $200,000 a year, cash. 200 grand a year making dog tags on dining room tables. That is what's called a lifestyle business. That's not venture fundable. Where's your patents? How are you going to keep tomorrow morning? I can do that. You can do that. So there's a lifestyle business which says it's a great business, it's wonderful, it's profitable, but no venture capitalists in their world would touch it, lifestyle business. And then there's a VC fundable business, VC venture capitalists. So you have to decide what kind of business you are. Remember the tortoise and the hare. If you know what you are and you do it right, you're great, but don't try and be what you're not. So I always ask people, before you go out to raise money, ask yourself, if I had all the money in the world, what would I do? Take my dog tag lady. Let's pretend you handed her $1 million. What would you do with $1 million in the dog tag business? You hire 38 other moms to sit around their dining room tables? I mean, there's not much you can do with $1 million. They can't spend it any faster. But let's take the toilet seat, guys. If you had $1 million, boy, you could get done a lot faster. You hire more engineers, you do your testing, your space junk. You're going to need money for that. There's some businesses that can suck up lots of capital where it's appropriate. Again, the trick is finding what's appropriate and scaling your business the right way. So I always look at a business when somebody comes in and says, I've got a genetics business and we're going to be doing genetic testing. The first thing I want to ask myself is, what are the risks? First risk is product. Does anybody want it? I'm going to come up with some new water, and this water is going to have, what am I going to put in this? Sleeping pills. It's called sleeping water. And when you drink it, you go to sleep. Well, you laughed. Somebody's tried that, I'm sure, but do people need it? Well, you know, I can always just have water with a sleeping pill. Why do I have to put them together? Does the world really need whatever you're doing? You get a company like Dropbox, we announce the product, people are flocking to it in droves. Great, you've de-risked the product. You've proven that the world wants it. If you ever saw the movie Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. You'd be surprised how many entrepreneurs say, I just built the greatest sleeping water. And you go, yeah, so? Everybody wants sleeping water. Well, I don't see them standing in line waiting for sleeping water. Oh, they'll all want it when they find out about it. Almost every entrepreneur in the world thinks their product is something everybody has to have. Great. Once you've proven it, you've de-risked it. So the product is, can you build it? Is it possible? Can you collect all the space junk? You got to move the stuff. You got to get stuff up to orbit. You've got to move it to the Lagrange points. You better hope they're stable and the orbits don't decay. Can you do it? Your genetics, can it be done? Your toilet seat, can you do one seat that can hold a 380-pound person and will also work on a 64-pound little small person? Is it technologically possible? Product risk. Market acceptance risk, does anybody want it? financing, can you get the money, and the operating execution risk. Don't underestimate the last one. Well, I can always hire somebody to do it for me. Yeah, well, it's not always that easy. Getting good programmers is tough. Getting good operating people is tough. Getting good scientists is tough. Getting good lawyers, getting anything in the Valley. Right now, the single biggest problem all of my clients have is hiring. That's what we spend about half our time at board meetings discussing. How can we get the engineer? How do we get the iOS programmer? How do we get a good user experience person? And one of my clients, we have 3 full-time recruiters. 28 people, 3 full-time recruiters. It's that hard to hire people. Question in the back. All I heard was, why is it so hard to hire people? Well, not in the Valley. There are 2 economies going on. There's the rest of the world and there's Silicon Valley. In Silicon Valley right now, I'm an old lady, guys, so I remember back to 1999, when you were getting funding, we had what was called the mirror test, M-I-R-R-O-R. You put a mirror under your nose, and if it got a little thing of breath on it, you got funding. Basically, they took your pulse, and if you were alive, we'll give you a couple $1 million. Then, the dot-com crashed in 2001, 2002, nobody got funded. And then you got back up to 2007, 2008 again. And guess what? The mirror test was back. They funded anybody. All kinds of goofy ideas got funded. Okay, that crashed. 2008, 2009, nobody got funded. In my personal opinion, we're back to the mirror test again. The difference is, in 2000, the mirror test got you $10 million. Now, Dave McClure has announced that he will fund $200,000 to anybody that's in Y Combinator. He doesn't care. He doesn't even read the business plans. He just looks at them. Oh, you were Y Combinator? Here's a check for $250,000. Today, it's pretty easy to get 50 to 100 to 200,000 in funding. The trick is, can you do anything useful with 50 to 200,000? The money is flowing. Anybody and their brother with a decent business plan can raise money. And so everybody's trying to do it. They all want to be south of market. I'm sorry, this is a medical group. All you guys are in South San Francisco. All the software guys are up in San Francisco. What do you call it? Life sciences is in South San Francisco, and all the data guys are down on the peninsula. So this is right around where the data guys are. All my data guys are here. So it's really tough hiring, because I can go work at Facebook. One of my clients, can I say this? Yeah, I can say this. One of my clients, we were paying our a user experience person $180,000. Got an offer for Facebook for 400 and something. Sorry, the guy's 24, 25, something like that. That's more than double. And he gets Facebook shares and was pre-IPO. What do you think he's going to do? Gee, I love you, but I'm leaving. Zynga can afford to pay any price. Google can pay any price. How do you compete? You're a startup. I'm going to give you my little stock certificate. You get 183 shares. Don't quit your day job. Okay, back to, should I raise money? We kind of talked about this a little bit. On the next slide. Where do you get money? By the way, do you love my little Dilbert? I love my little Dilbert. Would anybody notice if I just made up all the numbers? Yes. The best way to get money is the first one, FFF, friends, family, and fools. And that just means it's people you know. Hi, Sally, I just met you. Can I have a check for $25,000, please? I'd like to get my idea going. Sally goes, well, you made money on your first deal. You went bankrupt on your second deal. The third one sold to Google. The odds in general are 80% fail. You're up to 50%. 50 is much better than 80% failure. Sure, I'll write you a check for $25K. Why? Well, let's say, anybody heard of Dave McClure? He's got a company called 500 Startups. The reason it's called 500 Startups is he funds about 20 companies a month. He just writes checks. He doesn't know much about them. He says, look, 80% of them are going to fail. Maybe Dave's smarter than most. Maybe only 70% fail. All he needs is one Facebook or one Zynga or one Pinterest to make up for all the others that fail. Because he puts $25,000 in each of these companies. One of them gets him $28 million. Great. So the others are all failures. Who cares? So it's not so tough getting friends, family, and fools to invest. So that's the best place to start. Call up all your friends, your Aunt Sally, your Uncle George, your college roommate, and get everybody to lend you money. Now, we have a problem. There's something called the securities laws, and they say if you sell stock, and you sell stock the wrong way, you go to jail. Haven't you heard about all these people, like Bernie Madoff and guys like that? So just be careful that you work with the right lawyers, so when you sell the stock, you do it in a way that you don't have adjoining cells with Uncle Bernie. So there's a way to do it, and you just have to make sure people sign a statement. Yes, I've known Betty for a very long time. I am a qualified investor. That means I have a net worth of at least X dollars, and we have a pre-existing relationship, and yes, you can take money from FFF, friends, families, and fools. You can always take money from your mom. She may not talk to you again around Christmas dinner, but that's another story. Okay, angels. Angels are people that you just find in the yellow pages or get introduced to that just happen to have a lot of money. Now, there's an interesting law in the United States that was passed several years ago called QSBS, Qualified Small Business Stock. And what it says is, remember we were doing the Arrowhead Water Company out here? If I own my shares of stock in Arrowhead Water Company for 5 years or more, and at the time I bought it, it was a qualified small business, QSBS, I don't pay tax when I sell the stock. I bought the stock for $52, and I sold it for $5 million. I have a profit of $4.99 million bucks. As long as I take that 4.99 and I invest it in, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Benoit. In Benoit's space junk company, and I write him a check for $5 million bucks, I don't have to pay tax. I take the whole $5 million. I don't have to give half to the government and only have half left for Benoit. I can put the whole $5 million into Benoit's company. Because of this QSBS, Qualified Small Business Stock, a lot of people that made money in Google and Facebook and all these other companies are now becoming angels. Because they're saying, if I don't give the money to Benoit, I have to give half to the government. So why not invest? If I only lose half, I'm still even. And besides, I get to have fun. I think I was so brilliant, I invested in the last company. I must be me. It's not the fact that Pinterest was a good company. It's the fact I was a brilliant investor, so I must be brilliant in the future, so I'm going to go do it with Benoit. So there's a lot more angels than there ever used to be, because the companies that succeed, they go out and they buy a house, and then they buy a Tesla, and then they buy a private plane, and then they invest in other little companies. Okay, so angels. Super angels are guys like Dave McClure that have kind of made a tradition out of it. Used to be venture capitalists do great big investments. They invest 10 million, 20 million, $30 million. And then the angels would do 100,000, 200,000 bucks. What's happening is the cost of starting a company has come way down. So the VCs that used to put in 10 million bucks are now doing much smaller investments. And the angels that used to put in 10 or 20,000, that's not enough anymore, and they're coming up. So the angels are kind of getting bigger, and the VCs are kind of getting a smaller branch. They're still big, but they've smaller. And they're kind of meeting in the middle, and that's where you get the word super angels. That's a new word that started maybe 2-3 years ago. Venture capital, everybody knows what that is. That's the guys on Sand Hill Road. And then private equity. You guys heard of like KKR, buyout companies? Who am I in trouble? I'm Best Buy. Best Buy's in pretty bad shape, right? What is Best Buy? They're kind of a showroom where you pick stuff out and then you go home and buy it on Amazon. So Best Buy is struggling to get a business model. Guys that are in the PE, private equity business, swoop in on businesses that are established businesses that have kind of lost their way, like a Yahoo. And they say, hey, you got a great big company that's kind of doing this and they're not quite sure. We know how to fix that business. We're going to come in, we're going to take it over, we're going to put them on the right path. That's PE, private equity. Generally, you guys aren't going to be dealing in the PE world. You'll be dealing in friends, fools, angels, and that sort of stuff. We talked briefly about government grants. Venture debt. Venture debt's when you go to the bank and you say, hi, I'd like $3 million, please. And when they're done picking themselves off the floor laughing, they say, what's your collateral? What is it you're going to give me? Well, I have inventory, I have receivables, because I'm Leapfrog Toys and I make all these products, and they're these little speak and spell toys that all go to Toys R Us, and I got 2 million of those sitting in the warehouse. Well, great, they'll probably lend against me, that's real. Most companies don't have inventory. Most companies just have me, myself, and I have an iPhone app. You guys are going to have R&D, but who's going to lend against, handmade prototypes sitting in a workshop? That's just not going to work. So venture debt says, I'm just going to go to the bank and I'm going to ask them to be just like a venture capitalist. Trust me, I have nothing to do except my brains and my idea. Please lend me $3 million. You can sometimes get that. It just depends what the market's like. But the good news about debt is they don't own any of the company. Dilution was the question somebody asked about. I get $3 million. As long as I can pay them back the $3 million, I don't have to give them a piece of the company. The problem is if I don't have the $3 million, they're going to come in and foreclose on me, just like they're going to take my house away if I don't pay my mortgage. So you do have to pay it back. Yes? Okay, so Harshal's question is, what about a Kickstarter in places like that? Back in the old days, when I wanted to find friends, family, and fools, I'd go to the Boy Scout meeting and call on my friends and ask everybody. Now I can go on a company called Kickstarter, and there's a few others like that, where you post what you're looking for. And it's almost like an eBay for venture capital. By the way, my favorite is Angel List as opposed to Kickstarter, and disclosure, I'm a shareholder, so I always disclose when I'm plugging my clients that we do that. Angel List and Kickstarter are bulletin boards where I can post my business plan and I can connect to the community and people can find me, and they usually take a percent. That basically is the matchmaking fee. So they work. The legality of it is almost there because Congress is working on passing the law, but they haven't enabled the legislation yet, so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Question? Well, it depends. Right now, you can do lifestyle stuff. It's in their guidelines, but it's not a legal question. They're worried about getting sued. Right. What they're worried about is that I'm going to announce I have a cure to diabetes. Somebody invests some money, and I give some bad advice, and somebody dies. And they're really worried. It's less likely I'm going to sue somebody if my Angry Birds, I can't win the magic sword using Angry Birds. Okay, dilution. Anybody seen the movie The Producers, Springtime for Hitler, where you sold like 5,000% of Springtime for Hitler? You can only sell 100% unless you want to go to jail. So you have to figure out who's going to get how much of the pie, and it better not total more than 100%. So what you'll hear many people say is, what's my pre-money? $2 million. Our company, Arrowhead Water, Inc., we've decided our company's worth $2 million. We have a business plan. We have 3 customers waiting in the wings, and those 3 customers have told us that as soon as we can start shipping, they're going to go write us a check. We go up and down Sand Hill Road, people go, God, that's great. I want to invest. Your company is worth $2 million right now today. Pre-money, that's what you call it. It's today, right now it's worth $2 million. And they're going to invest $500,000 in the company. So last time I checked, even with my shoes on, $2 million plus $500,000 is 2.5 post. So the way we refer to this in shorthand is I'm going to raise half on 2. So raising half on 2 says I'm getting 500 of new money, and it was worth 2 million. And if you add the 2 together, it's worth 2.5 post. So now if we do the math, that 500, the 2.5 is 20% of the company. So I had to give away 20% of the company for $500,000. That's how dilution works. And what we do is, look, the 2 of us own the company. Right now, we own 50-50. Do you think it's worth giving up 20% of the company to get this $500,000? So it doesn't really matter that the pre is 2 and the post is 2.5. All that we care about is, we're going to have 20% less to make room for this. Is it worth it? And so you, as the founding team of the company, have to decide, is it worth it? I really only want to have to give up 10% for that $500,000. I think this is too expensive. Well, if you turn it down, you might be bankrupt. So you have to make the decision, do you or don't you? And the only people that can make the decision, you ask, what's the valuation? Whatever the market tells you. There's also the flavor of the week. Right now, solar is out. Remember Solyndra went bankrupt? Just try and get funding right now in a solar panel company. It's like impossible. 2 years ago, they were standing online throwing money at solar companies. So it depends the timing, what the flavor is, who's doing what. A company gets sold, and all of a sudden, all of its competitors' value just went up. So you never know. Okay, so lasting legacy. Anybody here old enough to remember the 2008 meltdown, where all of a sudden one day it went from fog the mirror to get funding, and it was just horrible, and the freeways emptied out, and everybody moved back to Iowa and moved back in with mom and dad because they lost their jobs? It was pretty bad for about 18 months. So the legacy of the meltdown was, before the meltdown, everybody just raised shitloads of money. And now people say, well, maybe I can do it at night, and I keep my day job. And we'll just do it around my living room table, and we'll raise, like Harshil's company. You can do that for $250,000. You can maybe do it for $150,000. Maybe do it for free if you get some people to work for stock, like the posters over at Facebook. Go write them a check. So I always recommend to people, spend it as if it's your own money. Yeah, I know it's your mom's money. Yeah, I know you got it from a VC. But pretend it's your money. Do I really need to get that fancy new Retina display iMac? Or could I kind of get my used $300 one, and I've had it for a while, and it's good enough, and it'll get me there? You don't want to be penny wise and found foolish. You want to be able to attract good labor and good talent. But do you really need fancy offices? Yeah, we can work out of my garage for a while. Okay, so capital efficiency is a word you'll hear a lot from venture capitalists. Okay, so where do you start? You need a company. You want to raise money. We want to make sure we know who owns it, because see, if there's no company, Sally's going to come along and say, Sally looks mean. She's going to go sell this idea. Well, but I owned half. Well, there's no company. Sally says, I just sold it. I just went to go work for Google. They give me a $300,000 signing bonus. Thanks, Betty. But you don't own anything. There's no agreement. Sorry to pick on you, Sally. So we really want a corporation. We want to go set up a Delaware corporation or maybe a limited liability company and have some real lawyers give us some real forms to say non-disclosure agreements and who owns what. Because let's see, who haven't we picked on? We haven't picked on any of you guys. What's your name? Madeep? Okay, so Madeep's going to come help me out. I want him to come work for me. And Madeep says, Betty, I love your idea so much. I'm going to work for free. Madeep, I don't want you to work for free. I'm going to give you 5 shares of stock. And Madeep says, God, that sounds great. I want those 5 shares of stock. We don't have anything in writing. We just talked about it. I go public, just like the guy from Facebook that turns up with all those emails. Remember, he owns half of Facebook? Madeep turns up and he says, I own 5 shares of stock. Well, he does, but I'm going to lie. I didn't promise you any shares of stock. Ooh, it gets messy. And besides, he says, I never got paid. Well, without having a non-disclosure agreement and a consulting agreement, I want a consulting agreement where you say, I'm not doing any work, Betty, until you give me a consulting agreement. And it says on the page, you promised to pay me 5 shares of stock. And I want the proprietary inventions agreement because I want to make sure I own what he does. Because what happens is I give him the 5 shares of stock and he says, well, I'm not giving you the source code. I'm going to keep the source code. I'm only going to give you the object code. Well, I want the source code. So it's always a good idea to spell out in writing who owns what, who's responsible for what. And you say to yourself, oh, that's so much work. I trust you. You wouldn't do that to me. Remember Facebook. Don't trust anybody. Don't trust your mother. Don't trust your uncle. Don't trust your sister. Don't trust your husband. Get it all in writing. And the answer is it protects both sides of the party because you want your 5 shares of stock. And I might screw you. And I want to make sure I get the source code and I get real ownership on that. And on the just one sec. On the last page of the slides, there's a resource list. And most of the major law firms have all of their agreements up for free on their websites. You don't have to pay them millions of dollars. Just download the stuff and use it. As long as what you're doing is vanilla, meaning it's normal, just use their free forms. If you have anything fancy, you might need real attorneys. But I've got some links on the back page to free forms. Yes, sir. What's your name? Niaz. Hi. Uh-huh. Okay, the question that Niaz has is, does the consulting agreement work for advisors? There's 2 levels of agreement you normally see for consulting. One is what, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Majid? I'm sorry? Majid. What Majid is doing, he's writing programming for me. That's a standard consulting agreement. I want you to write X, you write X, I pay you Y. But the services that Sally's providing, Sally just comes in every week and just kind of help me out as a strategic advisor. She's not really creating any intellectual property, but she's giving really good ideas because she might say, hey, you know, I think you should rename the company. Well, I want to own that name. So I still want, even though she's an advisor, I still want to own whatever it is that she creates. So typically there's a consulting agreement, which would be suitable here, and there's something called a board of advisors agreement, which is more for an advisor that does the other sort. And it's a much shorter agreement because it doesn't say, we'll file for the patents and the trademarks and the this and the that. But just about every time I've ever seen people use the shortcut agreement, that advisor comes up with a really cool idea. And you go, oh, shit. They just came up with this brilliant way to restructure. They came up with a new name for the product. Or they said, change the logo. I want to own the new logo. I want to own the name. So my recommendation is go with a long consulting agreement whenever you can. Because even though you don't think that Sally's going to come up with these great ideas, guess what? She probably will. It's the Valley. Everybody knows everything around here. So suggestion, go with a long one unless it's a real problem. Yes, question in the back, and what's your name? Michael. Nolo Press? I'm not a big Nolo Press fan. And the reason is Nolo doesn't follow what I'm going to call standard Valley format. There are 4 or 5 big law firms in the Valley, and they all do it the same way. Nolo Press does it the way normal people do it in Minnesota, and the way you do it in Texas, and the way you do it in Illinois. They don't kind of follow the Silicon Valley way. So Nolo Press is fine if you're leasing an apartment to your friend. You're going to sell your car. But if you're going to do this sort of stuff, I'd recommend you steal it for free from one of the law firms in the Valley, because that's what everybody expects. So let's say I want to acquire your company, Michael. I'm going to want to go read your articles of incorporation and read your NDAs and read your agreements. And the first thing I'm going to do is look at it and I'm going to go, oh, that's Wilson Sonsini's format. Oh, it's Fenwick's format. Oh, it's Gunderson's format. Or I'm going to go, shit, I never saw this one before. As soon as I say, oh, shit, I never saw this one before, I'm now going to slow down the acquisition process on buying your company. Because instead of worrying about the products, I'm going to go, I don't know if the forms were done right. Ooh, maybe he doesn't really own all the intellectual property. So it's just going to make me worry. So I just try and keep things as vanilla as possible, as normal as possible, to have as few exceptions, so they focus on the product, the customers, and the people, and don't mess around with the legal stuff. So there's nothing wrong with Nolo Press, but I'm a big fan of, you can get it for free, so you may as well steal it from the guys here in the Valley. Besides, Nolo Press charges $10. It's free. Sorry, I'm cheap. Oops, hang on, what did I just do? I screwed up. 1 sec. Okay. Oh. Okay. Okay, so the question is, why is it Delaware? First of all, Delaware is the first state. For those trivia people, there are 50 states. Delaware was the first state. And what Delaware said is, well, we don't have any natural resources. We don't have any oil. We don't have any gas. We're not near the ocean. We've got no resources. How are we going to get people to give us money? We are going to have the best corporate law in the state, in the country. So they have the most business-friendly courts. So everybody wants to be a Delaware corporation so that when we run around and when Michael sues me because I didn't acquire his company because he used Nolo Press forms, he says, you bastard, I'm going to sue you. He's a Delaware corporation. I'm a Delaware corporation. He's going to sue me in Delaware. There's a long tradition of how Delaware companies treat Delaware companies. Do not do a California corporation. Because when I go to buy you, I'm going to go, why are you in California? Ooh, weird. And you've just got one more strange thing that's different. And you don't want to be different. You want to look like everybody else. Now, what a California LLC is, an LLC is basically a partnership. So let's pick our toilet guys. This is going to cost me $20 million to get this thing off the road. I don't have $20 million. But tell you what, I'm going to do this during the day. I mean, at night. I've got a day job. And I earn $100,000 a year working at, I don't know where I work at. I work at Facebook. Right now, I'm paying tax on that $100,000. But if I own 5% of the toilet guys, we have a loss. We lost $1 million this year. Let's see, 5% of $1 million, I can deduct that off my personal tax return if it's a limited liability company, because the losses flow through to my tax return. So instead of having a paper loss that goes nowhere, we can proportion it out that everybody in the company gets to take a little bit off their tax return. I would only recommend doing that if you don't think you're ever going to go public or ever going to get acquired. You're going to do a lifestyle company. Because a lifestyle company that's a California LLC generally does really well. My dog tag ladies, they're a California LLC. They only pay one level of tax, personal tax, because there really isn't a company. The company is a limited liability company just so they can't sue you, but it's taxed like a partnership. So if it makes $100,000 and I own 20%, that 20%, $20,000 is paid on my personal tax return. Whereas if it's a corporation, the corporation pays tax on the $20,000. Then it gives a dividend, and that dividend is going to go to Benoit, and then Benoit has to pay tax again. So we had $100,000. We paid a 20% tax. We then give Benoit the 20. He then pays a 50% tax. There's only 10 left. So if you know you're never going to go public and never get acquired, an LLC is a really good way to go. And if you're in an LLC, you may as well be in California, because what's the good of Delaware law? You're not a company. So who cares about Delaware law? Yes, ma'am. Oh, it does? Excuse me? I stand corrected. Thank you very much. I do want to be really accurate, and that's how I learn, is by people correcting me. Oh, by the way, that's another important thing when you're doing a VC pitch and you make a mistake. You don't, oh, no, I think you're wrong. Hey, you're wrong. You raise your hand. I screwed up. Go on and make another mistake. You'll see my last slide says if you're going to fail, fail fast. Don't make excuses. Question in the back. I couldn't hear that. Say it one more time. Franked dividends? I don't know what that means. Oh, okay. The question is, can you avoid the double tax in the United States? And the answer is no, you can't. So the only way to avoid the double tax in the US is don't pay dividends. And the way to do that is either lose money, in which case you don't have any dividends, or you're an LLC. There's other choices, but you cannot avoid the double tax. What you can do, though, is if you have offshore entities where you're paying tax in, say, China, when you bring the money back to the US, there's a special credit that's allowed because it's foreign, not because it's dividends, but because you already paid Chinese tax. So they say you shouldn't pay tax twice on the same money. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. The question is, we went to Nolo Press and we already filled out the forms, and we're a California corporation. We're 9 months old. We already have 8 employees, and now somebody just told us we should be in Delaware. Should I switch? Well, the answer is it all depends. One of my clients right now is doing $28 million a year. I joined them when they had 18 employees. They were a California corporation. We had that discussion at the board level, and we decided to stay a California corporation. We still are, and if we ever go public or get acquired, we will go public or acquired as a California corporation. We had gone too far down the path, and it was too annoying and too expensive to change. So the answer is, if you have a chance, do it right to start with. By the way, it'll cost you about $1,000 a year, ballpark, to be in Delaware. But if you're already in California, you probably just stay, and you just live with it. But if you really, really think you're going to hit a home run, switch. These guys, even if we'd known what we knew, it was too complicated. We had too many contracts. It was just too, it was messy. And I just didn't want to be bothered with it. Oh, I can't imagine IPOing as a California company. If you're going to IPO, you're going to switch. If you're going to IPO, I can't imagine IPOing in California. At that point, so it costs you $80,000 to switch. Big deal. You're doing an IPO. You won't even notice the 80K. Yeah. I mean, you can switch for 5 to 10K early on. My client, it would have taken them about 20,000 to switch. We decided it wasn't worth the 20K. And right now it would cost us, 100 to switch, and I'm just not going to do it. Okay, so everybody says, you asked, how do you pick the price? And I said, a Ouija board. What's your business plan? Oh, come on, your business plan's a Ouija board, guys. You don't know what revenues are going to look like. You don't know what the market's going to look like. You don't know what the selling price is going to be. You don't know anything. So why do it? The purpose of a business plan is not the answers. It's the questions. You have to ask yourself, what are the 20 questions or 30 questions I need to answer to know if this is a real business? What's my market size? How much are they going to pay? I'm going to pick a software. Let's pick on Harshit. Let's pick on his software company for a minute. How many people are going to download the app? What percentage are going to activate the app? What percentage are going to use it every month? How often are they going to come back every month? Are they going to stay for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes? If I start displaying ads, what percentage of them are going to go, oop, and stop using it? It's going to be a freemium model, free, and then you pay to upgrade like Dropbox. What percent are going to pay for the upgrade? Of the percent they're going to upgrade, can I go gold, silver, bronze, or just one? How many competitors are there going to be? What are they going to charge? That's what you ask yourself in a business plan. How many engineers am I going to need to develop it? Am I going to use AWS, Amazon Web Services, or am I going to have my own server farm? How many servers am I going to need? A server can support 10,000 people or 40,000 people. What percent of the people are going to send me an email and ask questions? How many customer service reps am I going to need? The purpose of the plan is to ask the questions. I don't care, I don't know what the answer is. I'm thinking about it. Wow, I better think about customer service. I might need 2 people and I might need 20 people. But am I going to do email customer service? Am I going to do phone customer service? Am I going to write FAQs? Is it going to be available in French? Or is it just going to be available in English? Ask yourself this. What markets am I going to only allow the US in? Or am I going to allow anybody from all over the world into my app? Oh, well, gosh, did you know that in Saudi Arabia, it is illegal to display a picture of a woman where you can see her tummy? You can't display a woman in a bikini in Saudi Arabia. It's illegal. It's considered obscene. It would be just as bad as child pornography in the United States. What if you don't know the rules and you're displaying pictures of Sports Illustrated? But come on, that's not pornography. Sports Illustrated in Kuwait can get you in jail. How do you know that? So ask yourself the questions. What's your geography? What's your market? What are the rules? What are the mores? Who are you going to offend? Who's going to put you in jail? So, I mean, if I were doing Sports Illustrated, I wouldn't travel in Kuwait. I get to the airport, they can arrest me and throw me in jail. As long as I'm in the US, they can't get me. I'm not violating US laws. I wouldn't want to go to Kuwait if I were Sports Illustrated. Okay, how do you de-risk the stuff? And the journey is more important than the destination, asking the right questions. Okay, what's a plan? Oh, come on, we talked about this. If you don't know what a plan is, you don't belong in grad school. That's what a plan's all about. KPI, key performance indicators. This is the big deal. You have like a little dashboard for the business. We're going to go pick on you again. KPI, what's the churn rate? What's the acceptance rate? How many people downloaded this week? How much did they pay? What's their average ARPU? How many of their friends did they invite in? What % of the friends accepted? What are the things you need to measure in your business? You better know this. What's important? What's important in space junk? What are the top 3 or 4 things you need to know to run a space junk business? Yeah.
What type of knowledge?
Not the knowledge. What is the thing you know, is the business working or not?
Oh, right.
What are the drivers? You say, my business is doing well this month because I collected 38 pieces of space junk.
Right, that would be it.
Is it pieces? Is it tons? Is it?
The goal is to avoid.
Okay, so it's cubic meters. So how many cubic meters of junk did I get rid of this week? Great. What's important in your business? Do you care about cubic meters of space junk? No. Every business is different. So what's important? How do you know if you're succeeding? So something important to remember in the Valley is the best product doesn't usually win. The Edsel, remember the famous Ford car called the Edsel? It was a wonderful car. It was way ahead of its time. It had features no other car had. It was a failure. It wasn't a failure because the technology was bad. It was a failure because the marketing was awful. It also had a bad name. Edsel was named for the son of one of the Fords. So just because you say, I've got this wonderful product, that doesn't always work. Anybody old enough to remember Betamax, when you had Betamax and VHS before DVDs, when you did video recording? Betamax was a superior product to VHS. It lost in the market because Sony went and came in there with VHS. Oh, Sony Betamax, I'm sorry, it's the other way around. They all beat Sony. But the superior product lost for marketing. So say to yourself, I'm building the better product. Well, maybe you need better marketing. A good product with good marketing is important, but I'd rather have good marketing and a lousy product. Look at McDonald's. Is McDonald's food tasty and yummy? No, but everybody buys it. Does anybody say it's the best tasting hamburger I've ever eaten? You're kidding, right? Now, you take In-N-Out Burger, it tastes much better, but guess who's taking over the world? McDonald's, because they got better marketing. Okay, reducing cash requirements. Here's just some ideas how to keep the cash down, because you want to spend less, and you'll see the slides, and you can go read it later. My favorite's right there, customer and vendor financing. I don't want to borrow from my mom. I don't want to go for getting venture capitalists. What I want to do is, toilet seat guys, we're going to pick on you again. I'm going to go find every acute care facility and every acute care facility and skilled nursing facility in the US, say, hey guys, I can save you $300,000 a year in labor just by not needing as many nurses' aides to help people out. But you know what? I need you to give me $50K now. 2 years from now, I'll put you on the priority list and you get the first seats. Customer financing. If your customers believe enough in you to write you a check and you can get 15 customers to write you a check for $50K each, 2 things happen. First of all, you don't have to borrow the money. Secondly, they don't get any equity. And third, if you ever have to go out and raise money, it goes, wow, look at all these people that believe in me. My customers want the product so badly, they're paying before it exists. How much better does it get than that? Yes, sir. Okay. How can you get the customer to get a tax write-off or something for the $50K? It depends what you call it. If you call it a deposit against future toilet seats, no, you can't write it off. If they're buying stock in the company, you can't write it off either because it's an asset. Generally, they can't write it off. Now, if I go bankrupt and I never deliver a toilet seat, then they can write it off as a bad debt. But the real reason is it's saying the reason they're giving me the money is they're hurting, they're in pain, they have a problem. I'm solving their problem. So they're so happy to give me the money because everybody's tried and tried and tried and failed. Well, maybe you'll succeed. I have such a big problem. But the reason I love customer financing is it proves there's really a market. Instead of building it and hoping somebody will pay you, they've got pain so bad they're buying vaporware. They're standing in line to give me money just to get the product to build it. So don't say if you build it, they will come. Make sure there's really a market. Andy Grove, chairman of, actually he's not anymore. I should change the slide, he's retired. Only the paranoid survive. And what he says is always look in your rearview mirror. There's somebody coming out after you. They're coming to get you. I have no competition. There's nobody in the world that builds bottled water except Arrowhead. Ah, come on. Well, there's nobody in the world that does. Half these people I meet with every day, they all say, nobody's doing what I do. Well, they may not be doing it the way you do it. Well, I'm the only one that does twist-on bottles that turn to the left. Okay, so somebody else does a twist-on bottle that turns to the right. Who cares? Does the thing that you do that's different, does anybody care about it? Well, mine has clear plastic caps. Well, that one has black caps. Who cares? So if you're saying I'm the only one in the world that does it, chances are you're wrong. Somebody does exactly the same thing you do. So let's say, okay, I have a jacket. There's probably nobody in this room that has a jacket that looks exactly like this. But guess what? If I'm cold, do I care that it's black with red curlicues? It's okay that it's blue and it's short sleeve. I'm cold. So the substitute good isn't I have to have that jacket. I'm the only one that makes that jacket. I'm cold. I can wear a sweater. I could go put on long sleeves or short sleeves. I could go borrow her little sweat over here. So just because I'm the only one that makes that jacket doesn't mean it's the only solution. So ask yourself, what's the customer's need that you're filling? If you're the only one that can fill the need, now you got it something. And if it's patentable and nobody else can do it, that's even better. But everybody else can do a jacket. Okay, so if anybody says you don't have competition, that's bullshit. Everybody's got competition. Usually the competition is do nothing. Do nothing in the case of the toilet seat. I just don't buy it. I keep doing it the way I'm doing it right now, which is just have a bunch of people help lift them up. So nobody else is building a product, but the competition is nothing. Just do it the way you're doing it. Did you have a question? I thought I saw a hand come up. No? Last slide. Hey, last slide. Then we can go to Q&A. Best word of advice for anybody is do something you love doing. You can probably tell from the way I'm talking, I love what I do for a living. I'm lucky. I found a job that people pay me to do that I love so much I'd probably pay them to do it. Because I have a blast. I get to work with entrepreneurs and startups. It's fun. I spend more time each day with my startups than I do with my family. So think about it. You want to be with people you like to work with, that you enjoy. When you get up in the morning, you go, oh, cool, I get to go to work. I'm going to be part of this, as opposed to, oh, God, I got to go show up today and go work with her or him. So pick something you really like. And if you say to yourself, well, I'm picking this business because it makes money, you probably made the wrong choice. If you say, I believe in it, I'm passionate in it, I really, really, really want to do this genetic testing because I really want to be able to identify this stuff, that's probably pretty good. And if you can find other people to work with that have that same passion and that same drive, you're probably going to succeed. And if you make money, great, you make money. But if you say, I'm doing this app to make money, and it's not because of passion or inside fire, then when the going gets tough, you're just going to drop out and give up. Be sure the whole team agrees. I'll give you a good story. This is a true one. I used to work at a big company, Fujitsu. We had 40,000 people. And I felt pretty lost at 40,000. I wanted to go do a startup. My first startup. I was 23 years old. It was great. I found 3 engineers. And they said, we want to start a company, but we don't know anything except engineering. Would you come do the finance and all that stuff? I was 23. Man, I knew everything. I said, sure, guys, I know everything. Yeah, right. But I thought I did. We built the company, and after 6 months, we're doing $1 million in revenue. That's great. And I said, let's do 2 million. And they said, no, we want to stop here. We don't want to work any harder. We don't want to have to put in any more hours. This $1 million's fine. By the way, the company 20 years later is doing 1.0 million in revenue. I sold out to my partners because my goals were different than theirs. I didn't understand at the time how important it was that our goals were aligned. Because if I'm trying to do an IPO and you're trying to sell and you want a lifestyle business, we're going to not get along at all because we're going to have very different goals of how to run the company. So make sure you all agree. And if you've heard about this thing about lean startups, everybody heard about this new fashion lean startups? The thing I believe out of it is iterate, 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 iterate. You've probably heard of MVP, minimum viable product. What it says is if you're going to do something, get it out in the market as fast as you can, even if it's not finished, minimum viable product, MVP, and let the market tell you if they like it or not. Yeah. Oh yeah, if you're going to go put drugs in people's bodies, you better make sure it really works. You can't just say, hey, you know, this compound might kill people, and then again, it might not. But if you're doing an application that's non-invasive and you're trying to do stuff, so it's an excellent point. You don't want to run around killing people. But generally, a minimum viable product, let's say you're trying to get something to help me learn how to exercise better, and so you're trying to get me some feedback on what's good for exercise and my sleep patterns and whatnot. Put out a product and see how I react. Do I use it twice a day or twice a month, or I use it once and I never put it back on again? If I'm using the Fitbit or the Lark, what do people think? How do they react to that? Get feedback from the customer. Let the customer tell you what they want. They generally know what they want, even if you don't. And cash, 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 cash. Cash is king. If you've got cash, you fail, you got time to do it a second time. You fail a second time, you have enough cash, you can do it a third time. If you're out of cash, you're out of luck. And you're dead. Okay, so we got through the deck. There's a whole bunch of resources. These are some of my favorites. Some of these guys are bloggers. There's free legal forms at the bottom. All the law firms have one. I just didn't have room for the slides on here, so I was plugging one of them. Yes, sir. 80% fail. Right? Oh, are you going to succeed or fail? My favorite words on that are sustainable competitive advantage. If you have a sustainable competitive advantage, your chances of succeeding are much higher. You've got something that nobody else has, and you can keep away from the other guy, keep the other guy from doing it. Now, not every business has one. My favorite story of this one is eBay. What's eBay? eBay has nothing. eBay is just a bunch of people selling each other a bunch of used crap. Why is eBay a success? Well, it's because it's critical mass. It doesn't do it better than anybody. It's just that's where everybody is. So if you're trying to sell your used coffee pitcher, if you go on some other site that's got better graphics and better information and better this, there's nobody there. So the sustainable advantage that eBay has is just sheer mass. They got there first and they built it big. But why did Facebook succeed when MySpace didn't? I remember when MySpace was huge and Facebook was this tiny little also-ran nipping at the heels of MySpace. And everybody said, Facebook, they don't have a chance. MySpace got there first. What happened? How come MySpace failed? What happened to Friendster? You know, what happened to all these other companies? Why did Google succeed where Yahoo failed? You know, what happened? Yahoo's not a failure. It's a huge company. They haven't gone bankrupt. But by comparison, look, I'm carrying a BlackBerry, guys. Okay? BlackBerry? They're not going to be around. This is going to be a collector's item in a few years. They're going to go, BlackBerry? Who's that? I happen to like their contact manager. I think it's the best contact manager on the planet. Me and like 2 other people and nobody else. So sooner or later, I'm going to have to go join the real world. Yes, I carry an iPod Touch, but I use this for the contacts. So how do you know if it's going to succeed? It's a crapshoot. I mean, I've seen these things enough that my success rate on my client base, instead of 80% failure, I'm running 90% success. But I get to pick and choose, you know, and I'm really picky. You know, I met the Dropbox guys when it was 3 guys. They had just dropped out of MIT, and I got a call from Drew. And he called me at home, and he said, hey, I got your name, and I'm looking for some help. And I said, what do you do? And he said, file, sync, share, and backup. And I said, oh, God, not another one. They all suck. And Drew said, ours sucks less. I said, okay, for that I'll take a meeting. The chutzpah of a 22-year-old kid to say ours sucks less. And I'd been watching the space for years because there's my briefcase and folder share, and IBM had spent over $8 million on theirs. And who was the other one? Oh, Microsoft had spent over $9 million on theirs. Sumo Drive. Anyway, so this kid, I'm meeting him at a Starbucks in San Francisco, and he's showing me what they did. I'm looking at what they did. Hey, how do you do this? Oh, this is how we did that. How did you? They had thought ahead. They had designed a product that was better than the $16 million done by these 2 behemoths. And I said, oh my God, I have to have this. Can I have a copy like to take with me? This is wonderful. This is what I want. So sometimes you just know. Your tummy tells you, this is it. Hey guys, I want a copy of that software. You did a great job. It's wonderful. And he had charisma, present tense. He has charisma. He's a leader. You can just tell that energy. And I said, not only is the product good, this guy's going to be able to take it across the finish line. So sometimes you get a day where serendipity happens and you go, oh, am I so glad. And I remember calling my mom driving back down from the city and saying, this company's going to be great. Yeah. Yeah. How do you pitch a product and not have them steal your idea? You have absolutely no way to do that except for the integrity of the person you're giving it to. VCs will not sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement. They just won't, period. They see too many ideas. You just have to know that if I give you're a VC and I bring you an idea and you steal it, I'm never going to bring you another idea. I'm going to tell all my friends in the Valley what an idiot you are, and nobody will bring you anything. So the Valley is self-policing, which is people all talk. And so the only thing you can do is trust the reputation of the person you bring it to. Now, when you show it to your mother, because remember, friends, family, and fools, it's a different story. because your mom is not going to be Silicon Valley credible, and if you ask your college roommate, they may not know. So you have to be careful who you say it. But if it's a real VC or an angel, if they screw you, they'll never work in the Valley again. Oh, wait, hang on. We have somebody that didn't ask a question. What's your name? Nick. Hi, Nick. Uh-huh. Okay. Uh-huh. Right. Okay. Okay, so I'm not quite sure I understand the question. I'm going to bootstrap my company, and so do I have a day job that I work at, and then this is my evening job, or I actually want to raise money from friends, family, and fools and pay myself a salary? Uh-huh. But am I working for my own company, or I'm working for somebody else? Oh, okay, I get it. So I've just raised $250,000 from my friends, and I want to be able to use 100,000 of that $250,000 to pay me, so I get some money so I can afford to pay the rent and pay the groceries while I'm running my business. Is that the question? Well, then where's this $100,000 coming from to pay me? Right. Right. Oh, I go work for somebody else. Okay, so I'm working for Sally. Sally's paying me to do Sally's work, and in the evenings I'm working on my own company. And the question is, how do I earn enough money from Sally to afford to pay this company? Well, I would either have Sally pay me as an employee. I can be a part-time employee of Sally's, or I can have my company do consulting work for Sally, where my company earns consulting income from Sally. Now, the easiest thing to do is not to do that. It's for, instead of the company doing that work, because then the company is going to get the value, I just do that on the side. I, Betty, as an individual, work for Sally as a consultant. And over here, I have Nuco. I have my company. And that company doesn't pay me a salary. I just work for Sally. Why should I garbage up the books of the company, putting expenses and stuff on the company's books? I just work for Sally. I don't work for that company. Well, you have a company. I don't have to pay me. I work for free. What I work for, remember the stock? We had a deal. She gets 5,000 shares of stock, but she works for it. I get 5,000 shares of stock. I work for it. That's my compensation. So the company just pays me with a piece of paper with stock, and I vest 1 divided by 48, 1/48 of my stock every month. And to be able to pay my Safeway bill and my grocery bill and the rent and my gasoline, I just work for Sally doing something else. And I have to be very careful that what I do for Sally is different than what I do for the company, because I don't want Sally saying, oh, heck, you were working on an iPhone app having to do with exercise, and you're developing over here our iPhone app for exercise, and guess what? I've been paying you and used my ideas. So it'd be really good if what I do for Sally is completely different than what I do in my company, because that way you keep the wall very safe between the two. Okay? You had another question, and no? You had another question? Oh, that's okay. Heck, you're an easy group. Yes, Benoit.
Just to follow on the confidentiality issue,
Yeah.
that the Valley is self-policing. There is also, I was just thinking, there's also kind of a timing problem.
Uh-huh.
If you start as a startup and you have your idea and you're happy you start,
Right.
like a bigger company that is already in existence might be able to, produce the same thing cheaper just because they're bigger. And like, is there a way for you to just at least protect it for some time?
Okay, so the question is, I'm building this, we'll say with the exercise app on the iPhone, and that's something that Zynga could probably produce in a week with their resources. And it's going to take us 3 months because we're doing it part-time weekends and evenings. If all we're doing is just an app, there's nothing you can do to stop Zynga. Nothing. But if the way we're doing it is a very unique way that we can get a patent on, or a trademark, or a copyright, we might be able to file for a patent. And then when finally Zynga comes out with it, we say, you're infringing our patent. That's pretty unusual, but it's possible. That's why I said sustainable competitive advantage. If you've got that, you can prevent other people from doing it. So for example, with Dropbox, a lot of people are doing file sharing. Google just announced file sharing. But Dropbox has some very unique ways under the covers, behind the scenes, of technologically how it's done. And some of those are filed for patents. So if somebody tries to do it the same way, they can't. They can do it a different way, but it's less efficient. It's not as pretty. It doesn't work as well. And so what you're counting on is, and sometimes you do a trade secret. There's some stuff that my clients do that we decide we're not going to tell anybody, because if you file it with the patent office, I could pay $3 and go read it. And oh, that's how you do it? Oh, I'll do it this way. And if you know how they're doing it, you can work around it. So sometimes you say it's a trade secret, which means you don't tell anybody. You just hide it. And then if somebody figures it out on their own, you're screwed. You can't stop them because you didn't file for the patent. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, you have to tell them. If you file a patent and somebody asks, and you generally, when you file a provisional patent, you put right on the product, patent number so-and-so applied for, because you want to inform the world of your rights. But you may just choose, like Coca-Cola, guys. Coca-Cola is the world's most famous trade secret. If they had filed for a patent, it would have expired in, what is it, 17 years, 24 years? I forgot however many years it is. X years. But now it's 120 odd years later, and the only people that know Coca-Cola are the 4 people that have the combination to the vault that's in wherever it is, Atlanta, Georgia, or wherever that is. So Coca-Cola is a trade secret. And you can do all kinds of analysis and chemicals to figure out what's in it, but nobody knows how to make Coke except Coke. It's a trade secret. Have I worked with any startups that have regretted raising money? Absolutely. There are companies that, let's say they raised 10, I'll give you a make-up example. I can't use a real example. We're going back in the Arrowhead water business. Remember? Our famous Arrowhead water business. And we raised $10 million. A year and a half later, we sell the company for $14 million. We still have 8 of the 10 in the bank. We didn't need $10 million. We only needed $2 million. But we raised 10. So guess what? When we divvy up the pie, we have to go give these guys back all that money because we raised it. So you generally don't want to raise more than you need when you don't need it. The other time it's a problem is, let's say you have a lifestyle business, my dog tag ladies. What happens if somebody gives them $500,000? Well, they're going to want professional management. They're going to want them to expand into Mexico, hire 35 people, build a warehouse. Is that really what we want our business to be? So you have to ask yourself, you don't always take the money. But generally, if you're in a venture business where you need money, you take every dime you can get your hands on. And if the money's good and it's flowing, you get good terms. You negotiate like hell for the terms, but it's not a good idea to turn down money because tomorrow, right now we're in a bubble, right? What would happen in 2008 if you said no to money? 2009, nobody got funded. 2010, nobody got funded. The only people that survived in 2009, 2010, people that had a lot of money they raised in 2008 and it was still in the bank. And if you didn't have money during that 2 years, you went bankrupt because nobody was lending you money. So it's a good idea to have your tank of gas full whenever you can. But sometimes you say no. But yes, there are cases where people regret the money. And it's usually we took too much. But look, you said, look, we sold for $48 million, guys. Okay, so we took a little bit more than we should have. We sold for $48 million. Now, one that I've really regretted is a company that was in trouble, and we decided to take debt, bank debt, instead of equity. The company got in trouble, and the bank said, sorry, we want our money back, and they foreclosed on the company. If we had taken equity, they probably would have given us another 6 months before they shut us down. In retrospect, I don't think the company would have made it anyway, but the bank will be quicker to close you down than a venture capitalist. Question in the back. When you say hire a lawyer, I assume you don't mean the word hire, that means an employee. I think you mean retain the services of a consultant. I'm going to be picky because you don't really want too many employees early on. They're too hard to fire and it's expensive. I think you get, if you're doing a vanilla company, meaning it's pretty normal, go get the free forms from some of these guys. And you don't really need a lawyer if you're just doing really average, boring stuff. But if you think you're going to have a complicated company down the road and you don't plan ahead, you can end up in trouble. So let's just take, I've heard a lot of foreign accents in the room. Let's say that I know I'm going to have 30% of my sales in the UK in 2 years. Right now, I'm only in the US. But if I don't plan ahead and I go start, I make a couple trips, I fly over to the UK, I meet with some customers. Do I need a UK subsidiary? Do I know what the rules are in the UK? Do I have UK laws set up? Do I know what I have to do to avoid getting UK taxes? Do I have to collect value-added tax? Well, gee, it turns out I'm selling you the product. And I forgot all about this stuff. Well, I get a bill from the VAT guy. They want 14% VAT or whatever the VAT rate is in the UK. Well, guess what? My profit margin was only 10% in the first place. I didn't collect the VAT. I didn't know. Oh shit, I gotta go pay 14% VAT and I didn't know about it. So you don't wanna wait too long. But if you can't avoid it, and just at the beginning, just use the standard vanilla forms, that buys you some time. If you have a really good idea, the major law firms will often agree to defer fees. They'll say, yes, we're gonna charge you, but you can wait till you raise money to pay us. So you can run up to $10,000, $15,000 where they'll carry your balance until you raise the money. But they have to believe in you, and they have to believe in the product and believe they're gonna get funded. They're not running a charity. But very often they'll defer fees. There are financial folks that defer fees as well, and you just have to look and see, quality versus whatever that you pay for. Small percentage, very few financial people defer because it's usually one-person shops, whereas the law firms, Wilson Sonsini has, I don't know, 400, 600 attorneys. They can afford to carry a balance. Sometimes the attorneys will let you carry $10,000, $15,000, maybe 20 for a while. But again, it depends how much they believe in you. Is it a seasoned team? It's your third time around. They're much more likely to do it. You have a product they really like, they're also much more likely to do it. And by the way, we've run way over time, so if you need to leave, don't feel badly. I'm not gonna curl up and die in a little ball that you guys are walking out. I just wanna be available to answer questions, but I know we're way over our schedule. Oh, we got 4 more minutes yet, 4.5 minutes. We started late too. Yes, question? Well, she had a business plan to raise $1.4 million. And she was going to go international and go get distributors. And the answer is, but there's no defensible intellectual property. So there's nothing she could have done to have prevented the next guy right down the street. Your question of how do you prevent people from stealing it? As soon as she starts selling dog tags, 12 other dog people in their living room will start doing it too. And then why wouldn't one of the big guys like Hart's Mountain start building it also? So there's no way to stop anybody. So there's no way anybody's going to give her real money. Now, $5 grand, shit, you can make that back in 2 weeks. How are you going to make back $1 million? So it was a very funny business plan. I actually started laughing when I read it, but she was very sincere and she didn't understand the difference between a lifestyle business and a VC fundable business. And yeah, you could spend $1 million on the dog tags if it were your own money. You're Richard Branson and you want to do it, you can do it. I mean, I could have done a very nice business plan with $1 million, but nobody would give it to her unless it was her own money. So, if Mitt Romney wants to spend his personal fortune running for president, that's his money. If you want to spend your money doing $1 million dog tag business, yeah, you could do a nice job. But am I going to give you $1 million to do a dog tag business? I don't think so. New question. Very good time to raise money. It's a bubble. Yep. Oh, I can't see 5 years ahead. I'm lucky to see 1 year ahead. 5 years in the Valley is like a lifetime. I just think there's too much money right now going into too many projects that are all going to fail. And when you have an 85% failure rate, which is the way it's always been, and you got guys, do you know how many companies there are south of Market in San Francisco right now where it's 6 guys doing an iPhone application? How many iPhone applications? There are thousands and thousands and thousands of them. And how does anybody, do you wake up one morning and say, gee, I think I want to go find a new iPhone application that lets me count the number of holes on the back of a chair. I bet somebody's written an app to do that. And I bet they're charging $4.95. And I bet they've sold at least 200 copies. Great, 200 copies, $4 each, 800 bucks. Well, if you're eating ramen and you've got a day job and you're doing it in the weekends and evenings, you can make some nice money doing that. How long is that going to last? How are you ever going to find these iPhone apps? So I think it's a great time to raise money, but you have to figure out how you're going to survive through the crash. Because Valley goes up, Valley goes down. It always does that. And so when do I predicted that the crash was going to be in February of 2012. Guess what? It's after February of 2012. So my Ouija board is defective. So I have no idea. But I think it's got to come within a year or so because there's just too much money in the system. There's too much money chasing too few really good ideas. So people are spending money on stupid ideas. And when you start seeing people putting $1 million into dog tag businesses, you're in trouble. Now, I haven't seen that yet, but it's getting real close. I mean, some of the stuff that's getting funding, you got to be kidding. But that's been going on for a year. So I've been waiting for a year for the bubble to burst. And the higher it gets, the worse it is when it finally bursts. So the fact that it's taking this long in the run-up, it's going to be really painful when it goes. So I'm just making sure all of my clients have cash. Because when it dies, if you have cash, you could survive until it comes back up to normal. Because it's like a pendulum. It's too easy, then it's too hard, and then it comes back to just right. You have to survive through the really bad part. There's a question from somebody new. Oh, some iPhone apps are worth VC funding. Some aren't. I've seen, there's an iPhone app. Okay, we're an adult audience. It farts. You push the button and it makes farting noises. That's all it does. You push the button and it makes disgusting noises. Guess what? It's one of the top 100 apps. One of the top 100 apps in the iStore. And if it cost them $5,000 to develop the app, I'd be shocked. Maybe it cost $3,000. It was like dirt cheap, and they're going to make millions. I think that's pretty disgusting, but it's the real world, okay? So I think there's too many iPhone apps, but who knows when the fart one's going to work? Has anybody looked at lol cats, LOL cats, where you have pictures of little cats with I can't has cheeseburgers and stupid little captions? It's been around for what, 5 years now? When I saw it, I thought, God, how stupid. And you know, I kind of go back every couple months and look at a few of them, and it's really stupid. But it's around for 5 years. So you never know what's going to work and what's not going to work. I mean, Farmville is dumb. Sorry, Twitter is dumb. But Twitter's making a ton of money. And I looked at Twitter and I said, who cares I'm in the shower? I'm in the shower right now. Let me tell all the world I'm taking a shower. Now I'm going to the grocery store. Who cares? It's Twitter. How do the iPhone apps, how does the fart guy make money? Oh, well, the free apps generally want to sell you something. So a good example, do you know, anybody know? Yes, they do. Of course they do, because if you want to water your plants, you can spend all day doing it, or you can buy the super fertilizer. That's $9.99, or $2.99 you get this. So they charge you for extra little stuff. So anybody ever played with like Talking Gina, one of the Outfit 7 games, Talking Gina, Talking Tom? Gina's a giraffe, and giraffes are thirsty, so you give her water. And she goes, oh, I'm still thirsty. So you want to give her lemonade. Well, the water's free. The lemonade costs 99 cents. Now, if you give Gina 99-cent lemonade, she blows you kisses. So people pay 99 cents to give virtual lemonade to a virtual giraffe to blow you kisses. Virtual kisses. Now, to me, that's only slightly less bad than paying 99 cents to download the Fart app. But look, if people have time and they have money and they're going to spend 99 cents doing these stupid things, I'm happy to have my clients help them spend their money. But I'd rather do something useful like Dropbox than something stupid like fart apps. So I have chosen not to work with companies that do stupid stuff, just because I'd like to do something good in the world. There's enough stuff that you guys are doing here in the school that's going to be useful as opposed to fart apps. But you can make a lot of money on a fart app. It's just not for me. But there's nothing wrong with fart apps. There's a new question from somebody new. Oh, I'm sorry, what's your name? Jayden? Okay. Uh-huh.
So, you know, if you look at some of the
right. Uh-huh. Okay. Right. Right. When does a startup patent something? The answer is if you have a really good idea, you can find a patent attorney that will do it on a contingency basis for you. They'll do it for stock. 2 of my clients have absolutely no cash, and we've got a patent attorney, and the product's really cool and really special, and he's put about $60,000 of his time in. We've given him 4% of the company in exchange for that. He's worth every dime. It's really unique stuff. Generally, most startups don't have stuff that's that unique. Now, this is postdoc, and you guys are doing real research, so this may be an exceptional crowd. I'm used to more of the software guys, where you really don't have anything patentable. The trick is the United States just switched the way it did its patents. It used to be what's called first to invent. That meant if I thought of a really cool idea and I wrote it down in a book and I showed it to somebody and they signed the date and time and I put a copy, I owned it from that day forward. The United States just switched to the way the rest of the world does it, which is now called first to file. So it means whoever spends their $3,000 and files it with US Patent and Trademark Office, whoever gets there first owns the idea. So if you and I both thought of the same idea and I got there first, it's mine. So the stakes have just gone up and it's now more expensive because now you can't wait and just say, well, I have my little notebook. You actually have to start filing. And you can file what's called a provisional patent, which is a short one. And it says, I don't really have time to do the real patent, but this is sort of kind of what I'm doing. And then you have a year to change that into a real patent. So it's a really tough decision that they all struggle with. And it's around $30,000 a patent, rough ballpark. For non-technical, your genetics ones could cost hundreds of thousands, but a normal average patent is like 30K. And gosh, you know, if I want to file 3 patents, then that's like a whole year's programming staff. And it's case by case. Well, it depends. You know, if you say I'm going for funding and I have 3 patents and they're pretty good, and Sally's startup has no patents, and they're more likely to fund me. So it's you really have to look, it's very, very case specific. How strong is the patent? Any idiot can file for a patent. I mean, Amazon filed for the one-click patent, right? Sooner or later, that's going to litigate and they'll lose because it's pretty obvious. So you've just got to decide what's usable and what isn't from a patent viewpoint. It's not a rule. Okay, one last question. You got the last question.
So what if I have an idea, a product that already exists, but to use it as a medical product?
Okay.
Kind of along the lines of someone would ask, the company found out about the idea, they already make the product,
right?
And just switch it. So what's the best way to start?
Well, okay.
Invention that already exists for different use?
I'm going to put the question on hold just for a second for something I should have covered earlier. Venture capitalists define any company coming in for funding in one of 2 buckets. It's either better, faster, cheaper, or it's Brave New World. Better, faster, cheaper says it's something you already know how to do, and I'm doing it better or faster or cheaper. Remember In-N-Out and McDonald's? In-N-Out didn't invent the hamburger. They're just doing it better, faster, and cheaper. Maybe not cheaper, but better and faster. Brave New World is I'm doing something nobody has ever done before. Nobody has ever gone into space and collected space junk and moved it to a Lagrange point. It's never been done. So Brave New World, it's a science project. Can it be done? And does anybody care? Just because you can do it doesn't mean anybody cares. So the reason I brought that up is what you just said to me is better, faster, cheaper. It's not something new. It's a repurposing an existing technology. So the problem is if I'm Coca-Cola, and it turns out that Coca-Cola is really good for ear infections if you pour it in your ear. I'm just making that up to be silly. As soon as Coca-Cola finds out you're running clinical trials trying to pour Coca-Cola in people's ears to cure ear infections, you're dead because you can't stop them from pouring Coca-Cola in ears. So it's going to be really, 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 really tough to do that if you don't own Coca-Cola or the formula. Now, the question is, can you come up with something similar to Coca-Cola, which has a better germicidal property than Coca-Cola? And so you can say, well, if you put Coke in the ear, you don't get the same results. I kill 28% more germs because I have the secret ingredient, which I won't tell you what it is, that's in my stuff. So it's tough when you repurpose because I can't tell you how many people will come to me with an idea and I'll go, God, it's a great idea. But what's to stop Google the minute you announce from copying you? Remember the idea somebody had for an app and I said, look, Zynga could copy that in 2 weeks because they have all the staff. It took you 6 months. And you had to go do A/B testing and go figure out what's going to work and refine the UI and get everything all working. And all they had to do was download the app for 99 cents and copy it. They don't have to spend all the time testing it. You did the testing. They don't have to figure out should you do it on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or pink or green. You already did proof of them. Pink works better. They just copy pink. They don't have to spend the time to understand it. They just copy you. So it can be tough out there sometimes. So sustainable competitive advantages, how can you prevent when the world finds out, how can you keep it? Because as soon as you announce the iPhone app and everybody downloads it, they all see what it looks like. As soon as you've got your toilet seat out there, you spent years designing this. Well, they just take one apart and they'll know 90% of what you did. If you can't patent it, you spent 6 years in development, take them an hour and a half to take it apart and figure out how you did it. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Early on, so they don't know how you did it.
Right. Yeah. There's a special purpose NDA that you'll find on this website for mergers and acquisitions. And what it says is you're thinking of buying me or I'm thinking of buying you, and we're going to sign an agreement that says you can't use that for any other purpose. That's different. That's not honor system. I wouldn't show anything to, let's say I'm thinking of selling to AstraZeneca. I wouldn't show them shit without an NDA. There's no honor system there. The honor system is among the VCs. So thank you. That's a very important point. Yes. Remember, don't trust anybody, and that includes your mother. But the VCs, you don't have a choice. If you're trying to raise money, you have to. But everybody else, get an NDA. Even when you're interviewing an employee. I want to go hire Sally to come work for me, and she's going to come to my company, and she's going to walk through and meet with 2 or 3 of the engineers because I'm thinking of hiring her to do programming. She better sign an NDA before she walks in the door. I don't want her in the building. What might she might see? What might I tell her? What might I show her?
What I've heard is only 2 people, the very end of conversation, basically signing away for the company.
Yeah. Yes, but each time I've done it, though, you go into legal due diligence and they want to know everything you've got. They're going to have their engineers going through your 2 million lines of code. They want to make sure you didn't steal code and it was properly written. And so what you do is you make a deal. One of my clients sold to Safeway. They are the largest provider of gift cards in the world, in case nobody knows. My client was the 2nd largest provider of gift cards in the world. And we were 6 guys and a dog at the time we sold. So Safeway put a team of 43 people in to come buy us. That was more people than we had in the whole company. And so they want to go through the code and everything. And what we did is we made sure that we signed a deal that the guy that was allowed to look at the code had to sign an agreement that if the deal fell apart and they didn't buy us, he wasn't allowed to work on their main code for a year afterwards. So we tried to do that, and they were very honorable. They ended up completing the deal. But just in case, we tried to compartmentalize that. So there, but you generally, when you sell, you have to open up the kimono and let them see everything. Right. Right. Okay, so the question is, I have a water bottle and I have a lid. And nobody has ever before put a lid on a water bottle. You can buy lids in the market, you can buy bottles. Nobody's ever thought to put the 2 together. Yes, there are ways that you can patent a combination. It has to be non-obvious. One of the primary rules of a patent is if it's obvious to somebody reasonably educated in the art, you can't patent it. So sometimes, like the one-click patent from Amazon, it's obvious, but nobody had ever done it before. But as soon as you see it, you go, duh. So the question is, can you get the patent examiner to write the patent? And then will it survive litigation later? Because just because they issue it doesn't mean somebody can't come in and say that's stupid and have it taken away from you. So the answer is sometimes. Yes? Okay. Okay. Okay, so the question is, I'm a university professor and I've come up with a really great idea and I want to commercialize it. The first thing I need to do is I need to contact the intellectual property department here at Stanford if I'm working for Stanford. Because when I became a professor and they're paying me a salary, there's certain things that belong to the university. Because I get a salary from the university, I use research facilities here, I use the telephones and whatnot. And there's an agreement that I signed 5 years ago that I completely forgot about that said who owns the results of what I end up doing. Generally, the school owns it. Not always, you have to read your agreement, but generally the school owns it. But you sometimes individually get certain limited rights of what you're allowed to do with it. And sometimes if the school commercializes it, you get a percentage of the royalties. So the answer is you have to check, every school's different. The rules are all different. The big deal is, if you, let's say I work for Google, not a university, and I want to create some really cool idea in the evening on my own, and I want to own that idea. Well, I have to be careful because I signed an agreement with Google that said basically they own everything I ever thought of. So if I invent some new toilet seat, Google is not in the toilet seat business. They're going to leave me alone. I'm okay. But if I invent a search algorithm, or I want to do something to do with mail, or I want to do something with storage or photo sharing, I'm going to be in trouble. So you have to be careful to keep, if you're doing more than one thing, to compartmentalize. Marietta's nodding. You have to compartmentalize everything to keep it separate so it doesn't bleed across. And so you'll have to read what the rules are that you signed up for and be careful, because the school may not like having you do what you're doing there. Uh-oh, the gong. I've just been gonged and pulled off stage with a little hook.
So Betty will be here for a while, so further questions, please come up. And just in case, if you haven't signed the attendance sheet, Nastaran over there, please sign in before you leave. And with that, let's thank Betty again.
And I hope to see everybody's name up in lights and that everybody has fun and is a success. But have fun first, success second. Yeah, I can do the business part or it's in the presentation.
Okay, so the slides, if I get it from Betty, I will send it through the Ames members list. So please sign up for that. It's in the ames.stanford.edu website.